future. And you can start your journey with us by clicking in the link available in the chat box to register with us and to receive notifications and emails related to our activities and webinars in the future, inshallah. The title of our webinar today is The Science of Healthcare Regulatory Affairs. And I kindly request from you before starting our session to mute yourself and close the camera during the presentation just to avoid any technical problems. If you have any question, you can write it down and you can ask Dr. Nawal at the end of the session by unmuting yourself, or you can write it in the chat box during the presentation and Dr. Nawal will answer your questions, inshallah. And I will give a brief introduction about Dr. Nawal. Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal, for accepting our invitation and being with us today. Dr. Nawal Bukhatem is the Head of Regulatory Affairs Middle East and Scientific Office Manager at Takeda Pharmaceutical. Dr. Nawal, with 13 years experience within the pharmaceutical industry in regulatory affairs across 4 different regions, Middle East, Egypt, South Africa, and North Africa. Dr. Nawal is currently the Head of Regulatory Affairs for Middle East region and sitting in strategic discussion with ICMEA, India, Middle East, Maghreb, Egypt, South Africa, UCC, and Turkey. In Takeda Pharmaceutical headquarters in Japan, committed to bring better health and brighter future to patients by translating science to highly innovative medicine. Before joining Takeda Pharmaceuticals company, Dr. Nawal was Regulatory Affairs Associate Director at Shire Pharmaceuticals for Middle East and Africa. And before Shire, Dr. Nawal was the Regulatory Affairs Manager at Baxter Pharmaceutical for 3 years. Dr. Nawal is a strong regulatory business partner, driver for results, and team player in any project she is part of. She is part of it to enable different product launches and business expansion in faster but in safer manner to help our patients across our countries to access to innovative products. Being energetic, self-motivated person who spread positive energy in any team she is part of. Dr. Nawal inspires her colleagues and develops her team to perform at their best by building a positive work environment for talent development and growth, living their personal values in everything they did and giving back to patients. She enjoys working with diverse individuals from different cultures, disciplines, including remote team, learning new ideas and coaching others to address requirements for diverse stakeholders groups, including internal business partners, external business partners, and government organizations. Dr. Nawal set a high standard of results for herself and the team and succeed to get their engagements and commitments. Dr. Nawal has an excellent knowledge of pharma environment and regulations in Middle East and North countries. Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal. It's our pleasure to have you with us today and benefit from your great experience. And if you don't mind, you can start your presentation. Thank you so much. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Kulthum. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
And you can you see my screen, right?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, very good. I'm very excited to be here tonight to have this webinar and this session. First of all, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I would like to, before starting my presentation and the session, to have a special thanks to Dr. Mona Al-Musli for the invitation, to the entire IVPN team, and to you, Kulthum, and also to all our audience that taking the time to learn and to know more about the regulatory regulatory affairs, the development. And it's a great opportunity personally for me to try to convey the passion that I have in regulatory and try to share, how to become a successful regulatory affair from my humble experience and from the different, challenges that we have translate into a successful project. Without further ado, I can start my presentation. We'll start with basic questions, right? So the question always, we have to start with basic question. What is regulatory affairs? What this regulatory affairs team does behind the screen, right? This is my first question. Maybe other few questions that I would like to, everyone, who is seeking to go into regulatory affairs or like fresh graduate or going into entry in, internship in regulatory, few questions, can we operate in a country, without complying to local regulation? Can we plan our launch activities if the product is not registered? Can we participate in a tender without a regulatory document? Can we promote a product that is, not registered? Can we use a promotional material if it's not approved by the regulators? Can we import a product without regulatory approval? And last but not least, can we sell a product if it's not with non-compliant labels? To all these questions, the response is no, right? Here's some basic. I want to take you that how regulatory affairs was formed, based on what, long time ago. So regulatory affairs is a profession, that which has been developed from the desire of the government, to protect public health by controlling the safety and the efficacy of the product in the area, including pharmaceutical, medical device, cosmetics. At the same time, the companies, they have the responsibility, the responsibility to ensure, the testing, the quality and the safety of the product for, for the patient to make a worldwide contribution to public health and welfare. What is regulatory affairs, right? So regulatory affairs is not an administrative function. Yes, in fact, regulatory affairs has been evolved and improved a lot the past decade. It's a unique discipline where it has a mix of a science, management, compliance, compliance from local procedure and processes, but also compliance from, local regulation in each country. And as well, it has an aspect being a business partner, supporting, guiding, advising, recommending, the commercial organization how to do the business in a safe, but also fastest manner. So it's very important. And I believe for the ultimate goal to achieve a drug development and registration while complying to the country and company legislation. This is also very important that regulatory affairs plays a crucial role within the pharmaceutical industry. They are not only acting as a point of contact with the healthcare, with the regulator, and also they are not, playing, and dealing with different departments internally in the pharmaceutical companies, but also they are leading the regulatory affairs now. It's positioned that they are leading the department to translate, the regulation into practical workable plans to solve, challenges and issues. And this is now became the regulatory affairs as a strategic function. Without this function, that lead into a very successful launches, very successful, companies, spin-off, acquisition, and merger. So here, the really involvement of regulatory affairs the past decade, and, it become, sitting regulatory as a standalone function, as a strategic function within any pharmaceutical company. Also what we do, so we go into regulatory affairs, what we do externally, what is the role of regulatory affairs professional? Regulatory affairs professional, first of all, we are the first point of contact. We do represent the pharmaceutical company in front of the health authorities and the different government officials, that, we are, the first point of contact. before the health authorities. We collaborate, as well with the accredited regulatory affairs service provider and also vendor, to support us in different projects, in some complex, project where, we seek for expertise. We maintain a good relationship with our distributor, in a country or in a region where we have, maybe even in the same country, we have many distributors. So we have to ensure that, that these distributors are compliant with our local procedure, but also, supporting us to achieve the result that we are looking for. We are also the very important point of contact in all pharmaceutical companies' divestment deal. As I said, regulatory, we are the first point of contact in any divestment, merger, acquisition, because we had to set a successful plan to ensure, a successful execution and the transfer ultimate of these marketing authorization. Then, the spin-off can happen. Very important that regulatory affairs as well, externally, we are a part and an active part of the pharma working group. Here, we talk as an industry for the sake and the benefit of the patient. We are as one voice for all the companies. We share challenges, we share, some proposal, and this will lead, also intelligence will lead, we are to discuss, with the health authorities to lead, into shaping the regulatory environment. The support of many fast track and many reliance has been through this very strong pharma regulatory working group. We collaborate as well, and sometimes in some complicated project, we consult the health authorities to get their feedback, to get their preliminary view, because it's not everything that, that we face as a challenges are written in the regulation. Many of our challenges nowadays evolving, complex, it's not written by regulation, so we need flexibility. So this is, how regulatory affairs being very active, very dynamic externally, but also internally. Yes, here I want to share that it is a crowded slide, but just to make it simple to you, regulatory affairs, we are in the center, and a successful regulatory affairs has to work cross-functionally with different departments. And specifically, the involvement and the strategic position that the regulatory professional, has within any company. So a successful regulatory affairs has to be working, closely with supply chain, because we have to ensure that all our shipment, all our batches are supplied, and compliant with the approved pack or with the approved specification. Any deviation from that, we have to seek a preliminary approval from the health authorities before any shipment and also before getting any import permit. We are also, point of contact with the medical and the marketing, because we are an integral part of review and approval the different promotional material, the medical material as well. We are, being a regulatory affair GXP function, a function that is subject to audit and also part of an R&D organization, So we are part, we work very closely with our pharmacovigilance team, to ensure all safety measures, all safety measures, all alerts related to the patient are submitted, on time as per local regulation to the health authorities in where it is required and different. We also work closely with our legal department and with the legal team, because we do review all the regulatory clause for all the distribution agreement, where we have distributor in different countries. Very important function, the market access and the public affairs. Market access, of course, for the companies that they have the pricing part of the market access that is independent from the regulatory affairs. We have to work very closely. Why? Because, in majority of our countries, the pricing is an integral part of any product registration. We don't have, separate pricing, only few countries, but majority of our countries. So that's why working with the market access team is very crucial, that we communicate a successful strategy, and also supporting for the best sake for our patient. We work, as I said, being a GXP function, we work closely with the quality, with the compliance, and as well, we are subject to audit at any point of time by the healthcare, but by the regulator externally, but also internally. being, subject to audit. Our also, so this, to show you how the matrix and how, regulatory affairs has been evolved, and, being in the center and working agility, with cross-function collaboration. With that, we face many challenges. Yeah. So in regulatory affairs, it is very dynamic. So a regulatory professional that like the challenge, that like, solving problem, this is the place to be, right? It's every day there is something new. Every day there is a new project. It's never the routine. One of our challenges, I have listed few challenges. They are not, of course, there is many. So we have the frequent and the challenging, in changing the regulatory requirements, dealing in big region, diverse. We don't have a harmonized requirements. More or less, within GCC, there is very much similarities, but, within the Middle East and Africa, there is very diverse requirements, right? That we have to cope with. In addition, it's not, these requirements are very challenging. The pricing, the regulation and restriction. As I mentioned, most of our countries, the price regulation and price registration is an integral part to get the final product registration. So that's why it's, very much linked, and it is a very important step that, we have to collaborate successfully. So this pricing regulation that has also some drop point and some challenges. Limited resources, sometimes at some companies, and some, R&D driven, the resources in some to support some filing or some expansion are very, very hard to comply, the increased need and requirement, at the local regulation. The political unrest, which affect accessibility to the health authorities and registration timeline. We have noticed, for example, some, during the COVID time, but also recently the recent, Ukraine issue that also create, some challenges and some slowdown of health authorities due to current situation of the war. Last but not least, we face also challenges in terms of the availability of the CTD dossier. So whether the CTD, is for local manufacturing products, so we have to wait maybe some results, some, stability testing to comply to fulfill, but also for imported products, sometimes, even the CTD is not ready yet. For many reasons, the most frequent cases is that, the dossier is outdated, the section has to be updated, the different modules has to be updated, because our responsibility is not like just about submitting a dossier and that's it and getting a submission receipt. Is to submit and liability in front of health authorities to submit an updated dossier, a dossier that has all the different updates as approved in Europe, or if it's local manufacturing product, the same is that it has to be an updated CTD dossier. And with that, I will transit a very important module here. I will give some brief about, an important piece that, we keep hearing, whether we are, in regulatory affairs, the CTD, right? So I will transit into ECTD, right? So what is ECTD? So the electronic common technical document, or the dossier, an interface medium of pharmaceutical industry to transfer their regulatory information to the health authorities. This is the identity of every product. It is into ECTD. It's an electronic CTD dossier. The ECTD describes the technology used to organize and electronically transfer the CTD to the health authorities, right? So it is the electronic version of the CTD. The ECTD composed by two types of specification, technical specification and content specification. Technical specification is usually handled by a team, called publisher team. Sometimes, some companies, they, outsource this publishing step, and there is a lot, it has been improved. Many of companies and consultants very well, they do this. Or some of multinational companies, even some companies, they do this publishing internally. And there is the content specification. The content specification here is this one, right? So what as I said, So the CTD, it is, you know, just imagine what does it CTD or a dossier of every product. It's like a pyramid, right? So a CTD is constituted about different modules, right? So we have the module, the country-specific module, which is module 1, which is like the country-specific requirement, right? Then we have module 2. Module 2, it is the summary of the rest of the module, like the summary of the quality overall summary, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. Then we have module 3, which is the quality. Module 4, it is the non-clinical, the study report. Module 5, it is the clinical study report. Then all these 3, 4, and 5, they are summarized. So for example, if I want to have a very quick overview about my dossier or my product, I can go directly to the module 2 and I read, you know, the quick brief summary so that I will have very high level and overview about my products in terms of even the clinical, how the product is manufactured, the testing, the control, you know, and all this part. And, you know, also in terms of the clinical study that has been done and the non-clinical study. Usually, you know, to prepare the CTD, you know, as per local regulation, GCC, I would take the GCC regulation or even GFDA, it takes, you know, from 3 to 4 months and sometimes up to 9 months. The reason behind is that there is some limitation in granting the requirement will delay further, you know, the file preparation. Specifically, you know, the country-specific requirement, the CPP, if it requires legalization, in many countries, it is required legalization, the GMPs as well that require legalization. But also the different modules, because usually these modules also need to be up to date. Yeah. An ECTD characteristic, right? Just like, you know, for many of our audience, you know, that you know, but also if you don't know, just to give you a snapshot of an ECTD characteristic. ECTD, you know, it is, as I said, the electronic version of the CTD, of the dossier. It has a hyperlink. The beauty of an ECTD is that when you click about the section, it takes you directly to the section. It is paginated, so all the pages, they have numbering, right? And they have their own table of content. It's very easy, very accessible for the regulatory professional, but also for the healthcare, for the regulators at the Ministry of Health. It's very easy for the review. It includes bookmark, right? And also the text should be New Roman 12-point font, right? Sequencing. An ECTD, as we said, it is an electronic, but there is some rules. There is some basic rule, very good, you know, to organize that has been set in place as per the ICH guideline. So the ECTD has always start with, you know, has 4-digit number. Each dossier or each application has 4-digit number. Always it begin with 4 zeros. The 4 zeros, it is the base, it is the initial MA, if I take an initial MA, right? So therefore, you know, the first ECTD submission to the health authorities will have the number of 40. Then the next one is 0001 and then 0002, etc. The sequence 0001 usually, you know, will often be the answer to questions from the health authorities. So as I said, if we take the example of the sequence 40 as a new MA submission, usually the 0001 is response to questions, is the RTQ. The sequence following, the sequences following a given submission may be related to the submission and maybe are independent. What does it mean is that maybe, you know, we will grant the new marketing authorization after only one sequence, after one RTQ, means like we have 0001, right? Then maybe the sequence 0002, it will not be related to the new MA. It's a renewal, it's a variation, and so on and so forth. You can see here, there is the initial submission, the 4 zeros, and then there is the other, you know, sequence, whether it will be related to this one or it is independent. An ECTD characteristic, you know, the life cycle management, the beauty again, and to make easy, the ECTD is a very, how I would say, is one of the best solution for the regulatory professional in the companies, but also for the reviewer. It really improve and make the life of the review, but also of the regulatory professional very easy. You know, when we work in ECTD, like now for many years, specifically in some, you know, of our countries, very advanced, it's, you know, we can see like, oh my God, this is an improvement. So it has a different attribute. So it has an attribute is new, as new, means that the file, you know, or the document has no link with any previous file document. So if it's new, means like this is something new that has been added into that sequence. If it has the attribute as replace, you know, it means like the file document replace a previous one. If it has an attribute of delete, means like is not relevant for the submission or no longer use, and it has append. This is, you know, an example, you know, a sequence 0000. This is the initial submission, for example, and it has all the 5 modules. As I said, module 1 is country specific requirement, and then module 2 is the summary of the rest of the module. Then module 3 is the quality part, which is like it's related to the manufacturing control, you know, and testing. And module 4, it is the non-clinical. Module 5 is the clinical. And again, an ECTD, the easy part of it is like when we click, it has hyperlinking. So it takes us directly to the concerned module. Again, it is an improvement. So I can tell you, imagine, you know, we used to be back in the years, like this is how it looks like, whether our offices or even the offices at the health authorities. Some of the health authorities, this is how it looks like. Now with the improvement of ECTD, this is, you know, how all the dossier, all the documents are into a CTD. So you can see, you know, a desk, so where we see CDs or documents, but even, you know, not now, you know, with the COVID, you know, the CDs, you know, unless it's necessarily or required. So we have many options to share the dossier, you know, through a protected, you know, way with the health authorities or with our distributor. And I can mention, you know, an example that, you know, the ECTD, why it's been very important and why it has an improvement. And, you know, it was a proof and a true testimonial during the COVID time, you know, the past 2 years where some, you know, countries that they haven't, they had implemented even in advance and earlier the ECTD, we hadn't had any impact, like a country like Saudi or a country within GCC, UAE, there was no impact into the submission because the submission were set earlier than the COVID and it wasn't electronic. But, you know, we have noticed that some health authorities, if the ECTD is not there, you know, the submission was completely closed. The regulator and the reviewer, you know, they are not receiving the files. So there was some challenges. And here, you know, it was, as I said, a testimonial for some health authorities. They have to expedite the ECTD implementation. So, you know, so the ECTD, it has been accepted in many of our countries. So here, and also worldwide, I have mentioned, well, what interests us within GCC, all the countries implemented except Kuwait. But if it's an ECTD, they won't reject, they will accept. South Africa, Australia, Thailand, but also, you know, we have Jordan implemented the ECTD a few years back, right? Once ECTD, but it's always ECTD, right? Once we implement an ECTD, is that the beauty and the good things that we have to have these life cycle, the different changes related to the product will be into ECTD. The benefit of an ECTD. So this is in brief the benefit of an ECTD. So we have the submission, you know, through a gateways, allow immediate receipt by the health authorities. So it's very secure, very safe. And also it's a digital, it's an online, right? Accessibility to document across modules. So it's very well structured and it has the hyperlinking. So it's very accessible. Allow repurposing of the document for submission in other region, right? So if we want to clone a dossier for a country, like for example, Saudi, and submit for another country, it's very easy. So we just clone the module 2 to 5 and it's easy to have for the other countries if they are following the same requirement. Search functionality and increased tracking ability. It's very important. The ECTD will let us know if this section is approved or not in the country, or if this section has been submitted or not, specifically when we go from an initial submission to the different life cycle of the product. improve handling and the archiving and the submission. I showed you an example, when we have, the ECTD implemented, the archive become, a state of art. The archive is very beautiful and we have the archive. But, if a country or health authorities, they don't have an ECTD, the archive is like, all the files has to be, printed or, for all the different reviews. Can reduce the time of approval. Yes, in fact. Many health authorities has shown, efficiency, and also they were able to implement many of Reliance that I will take you in my slide later on, in terms of fast track to get the product and to have a fast and a shorter time of review. The ECTD really supported that, because even when we have an RTQs, it will really, replace the needed modules, or request a new one. So it's very easy for the reviewer compared to the non-ECTD. And improves the reviewer efficiency. Yeah. Why regulatory affairs is important, right? With all what I have been said, is that regulatory affairs has a critical role to maintain the licensed product, to ensure the following: the protection of human health by registering new innovative breakthrough product, safety, efficacy, quality of licensed product, appropriateness and accuracy of product information to all healthcare professional, patient, and health authorities. All product post-approval changes are evaluated, submitted, and approved as where applicable. As we said, is that our role does not end when we register a new product. It's a life cycle. So we have to ensure compliance of all these products to ensure that all our products will reach safe to our patient. So this is very, very critical. The expiration date for all registered products are maintained on time, by submitting the renewal dossier to the different health authorities as per local regulation. Most of our registration in all our countries within Middle East and Africa, all the licenses secured for our product, they have a limited within 4-5 years, some of them are 10 years. After that, we have obligation to submit the renewal. If we don't submit the renewal, some health authorities, even they implement penalties and fines unless we cancel the registration, meaning this product is not needed, it has many other alternatives, and company decided to cancel or deregister the product. But in other than that, we have to ensure the renewal are submitted, and usually we have to ensure the submission minimum 6 months, before the renewal due date. All submitted commitment during the previous submission are completed as committed. Business continuity in our region. As I said, all this just summarize and again stress the importance of regulatory affairs, where this regulatory professional, they sit in a very strategic function to enable, a very safe product. Regulatory affairs also has a critical role, to support the product prior approval, because we have also, if the product is not registered, to support, our medical team to secure needed approval whenever, as per local regulation, before supplying a non-registered product. This is, my general overview about the regulatory affairs. Now I will go the next 10 minutes. We are good on time, Kulthum, right? Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal, for the enlightening presentation and the valuable information. Really, you covered most of the information related to regulatory affairs in a short period of time. Thank you so much.
Yes, Kulthum, yes. I think we're good in time. I will just finish in 10 minutes. I will take the regulatory landscape, right?
Yes, okay. We have time. Yes,
perfect. So as I said, now moving into regulatory landscape, I wanted to give some overview how the fantastic improvement of by many of our regulator in many of our countries has been done, just to ensure fast access for innovative product, for the breakthrough product, rare disease product for our patients. And this, has been observed the past 5 years. So I start with Saudi Arabia. I have put here, you can later on, when we share, my deck, is that the different process for submission, but also, I have shared here the different review timeline that SFDA has. So SFDA was the first country implementing a procedure, fast-track procedure called verification abridged procedure. This verification and abridged procedure is for the innovative product, the product that are recently approved by FDA and or EMA, and they are entitled for this fast-track review that 30 days if it's approved by FDA and or EMA, or 60 working days if it's approved by both. And in practical, it's between 6 to 9 months. Of course, it depends on the clock and the question that are raised. Also, we have another path in Saudi by SFDA. It's the priority review. The priority review, so if the product is approved more than 2 years by the FDA, EMA, but also by another stringent health authorities like Japan, Australia, and also it has a breakthrough. It has an unmet medical need that it is justified that SFDA committee would accept in their priority review. We will be entitled into this priority review to reduce the timeline 40%. Then the average approval timeline will be 12 to 18 months. And also we have the normal registration for all product if is not, so it's between 2 to 2 years and a half as normal registration. Kuwait, so Kuwait also implemented, so Kuwait used to have the normal registration process. It's between 10 to 18 months, maybe sometimes up to 24 months, but also has implemented, you know, a few years back, like Saudi FDA, the fast track. This is entitled for all product FDA, EMA, and also approved by any other stringent health authorities, Australia, PMDA, you know, Swissmedic, Canada. And also it has, like, you know, an unmet medical need or, you know, an orphan drug. This this path is for entitled for the product. Then, you know, it will give 6 to 9 months the overall registration process into the country. The specific also, you know, in Kuwait, the MH and the manufacturing sites parallel submission to the product registration. This is the overall, you know, process of registration. UAE, one of the leading, I would say, country in the GCC, you know, among with the Saudi, for the fast track registration for bringing the innovative product to the patient in a fast manner. And I will show you later on the IQVIA report that, you know, confirm that UAE is leading in this fast track registration. You know, so UAE also, like Saudi, has implemented the fast track for the product, you know, approved by stringent health authorities, whether it's FDA, EMA, you know, Australia, PMDA. Also, the product is innovative, partially innovative product, orphan drug, and unmet medical need. So if these criteria are met, one of these criteria are met, it's entitled for fast track, which like will lead into 3 to 6 months. But we have noticed some product even has been registered within few weeks. If we're talking about vaccine, antibodies, which like even the regulators has shared that during any of conferences. However, if the product is not in this category, it is entitled into the normal registration. It will take 9 to 12 months. So a part of the GCC, I wanted to add the GFDA. So the GFDA, what's new? Just a quick update on the GFDA. There is implementing the ECTD, one of the beautiful things that recently has been placed. Many of work has been done at the pharmaceutical company, but also at the GFDA side. Drug registration regulation, a priority request can be submitted, granted in some cases. So there is a fast track procedure, which like will lead into 60 or 90 days if the product is approved US or EMA, and approval timeline within 3 to 6 months. Sorry. The pricing, another update is that the pricing regulation, the originator price should be renewed after 2 years from the first approval, and then after 5 years, which is like the renewal phase, unless there is any price change in the country of origin or Saudi Arabia, which like we have to notify the authorities. With that, I will take you my last few slides. This is a report published by IQVIA in March this year. This is to show, that UAE has the highest number of new, medical, new chemical entities registered, followed by Saudi Arabia and South Africa. You can see this is UAE's leading in terms of recently approved product, and then there is Saudi, South Africa, and this is the ranking, right? This is the number of products, right? The overall UAE, South Africa, Egypt has really improved. Also, I want to mention a quick note about Egypt. Egypt, since the the establishment and the implementation of the EDA, they are very active. They have implemented many of regulation, many of guidelines, to support and to elevate the capabilities. And also, they are the good things. They are seeking the support of different companies where they have the knowledge, the expertise, and also health authorities to get this, to be like, some of the GCC countries within the very fast pace. But also there is other health authorities. They are really, there is a room of improvement, which like here the role at the pharma working group, the industry, to support these countries and these health authorities, whether it's Algeria, Tunisia, and Lebanon, where we have seen very slow of the review of the innovative product approval timeline. Maybe many factors, specifically, well, it's political changes into the organization or the infrastructure. That was my last slide. And always I want to add into code, always, remember, regulatory is the seed of the success. If we don't plant the seed, we won't be able to harvest the fruit. I hope that my session was beneficial. I think I can stop here, and maybe Kulthum, if there is any question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal, for the valuable information. Now we can start receiving the questions from our audience. Please, if anyone have a question to Dr. Nawal, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Yes, Dr. Muhammad.
Yeah, hi. My question to Dr. Nawal is that just in the slide, she mentioned some benefits of ECTD. That one of the benefit is the submission of our dossier through e-gateways. So there are any e-gateways in GCC, or there is a common gateway like CES in Europe, or a separate gateways, a submission gateway for each country?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. Very good question, Dr. Muhammad. Just to let you know, yes, every health authorities, they have their portal and their own regulation. For example, the SFDA, if I talk about Saudi, they have their own, where we have to download the CD directly into the website, where the CD, the same like UAE, Bahrain, so every health authorities, they have their own e-gate, or like their own portal where the dossier should be submitted. So we have to ensure that this is followed as process. Unfortunately, we don't have a common, e-gate, but we have to ensure that this is received to the health authorities as per, their way of organization.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal. Anyone has any other question? Yes, Dr. Muhammad again.
Yeah, my next question is that we have, for example, in US FDA also we can check sites, what are registered sites, or in Europe also we have your GMP database. So for GCC countries, is there any future plan or currently any database for to check the GMP status of sites registered?
Thank you. Very good question again, Dr. Mohammed. Saudi, yes, in the website, because everything is published. Some health authorities, unfortunately, are part of Saudi. We don't. UAE, yes, we can see through the portal and specifically through the agent, we can search the site and the status of each site. But the other of many of GCC or even within the Middle East, there is no that database, where we can see, or even at the level of many of GCC countries. But some of them, we do have this database. So that's why, my recommendation is that, and this is, specifically, we know that the site registration is a prerequisite and is a very important step. So either to have this site database locally or globally, for future reference, because all these sites, whether it's a CMO or our internal site, are subject to renewal. Yet sometimes we do some changes to the site, but the renewal has to be submitted. And sometimes it's a roadblock if the site is not renewed or if it's not registered. So the product registration will not be granted. So usually, to benefit and to ensure, a smooth review for the product, usually, we establish a site database, usually at the global level or even at the local at our end. So this is my recommendation in terms of the site.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal. Yes, Dr. Ala, تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
دكتورة نوال يعطيك العافية. شكرا. Thank you for your slides as a professional as usual. I have just a quick question regarding on slide number 9. You have mentioned that the ECTD is considered a challenge for professional regulatory affairs. I need more insight from your kind side about this, because one of our main responsibilities is to prepare.
I think
it's glitching. We are not able to hear you well. Can you repeat your question, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. In slide number 9, you have mentioned that availability of CTD is a challenge. Why you have considered this point as a challenge, knowing that one of our main responsibilities is to prepare an ECTD, or at least to prepare CTD sections and convert it to ECTD. Yes. The second point, before we have started ECTD compilations, we used to prepare CTD, then we have a transfer to NIS. After NIS, we have a transfer to ECTD. This is the process of flow from transformation from paper-based submissions to electronic submissions. For me, technically, I found NIS and ECTD have, let's say, major accountabilities for both of them. So why we have considered ECTD is better than NIS. Third point, as you have mentioned, we are working as a cross-functional with other departments. So whenever we have received any question, from other departments, like as example, supply chain, if they came to us and inform us we need to change the API, so we have to be ready with our answer. What will be the circumstances? My question to you, Dr. Nawal, today, if I have an X API and I need to add or replace whatever that we need, another API suppliers, what will be the control measures that I need to take into consideration to approve to our supply chain and vendor management team to procure the API from the new API supplier?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ala, for all these questions. They are brilliant. So let me start. You have to with your first question, and I mentioned here. So in my slide number 9, in fact, the availability of the CTD dossier. Maybe let me explain it in a way. Is that the timeline, right? So a CTD, sometimes if a CTD is not prepared locally, if it's like an imported product, sometimes the CTD dossier we express delay from the global, team, that they are, preparing the CTD, so they don't give us the CTD in the time that we have agreed on. Reason behind, many sections are outdated. We have to update the section, because we cannot submit an outdated section. There is some changes that recently approved by EU or US FDA, then they have to include this section, an updated method of analysis, specification change. So the availability of the CTD internally, they are sometimes challenges to get the dossier, or sometimes, because if we are talking in a very corporate way, an R&D, for example, organization, sometimes the dossier is taking longer because of all these reasons that I have mentioned. So that's the challenges I mentioned, to be able to submit in the time that we agreed, for example, when we initiate, the project with the global, and also we discuss with the commercial and marketing team. Okay. I hope that I respond to your question. The NICE, right? NICE and ECTD. In fact, I can tell you, ECTD has the beauty is that the ECTD has hyperlinking, right? So and also has a sequence, so it has the 4 zeros, and then it has 001, 02. So it gives the history of all the different filing. We cannot submit any change related to the product if it is not ECTD, because if we already convert into electronic, we cannot submit any filing. But if it is a NICE, even without publishing, we will be able to submit to the health authorities, right? But the good things in ECTD is that once we have convert, our application into ECTD, and we have in place the sequence 4 zeros, then we have to follow the rules of an ECTD, meaning like we cannot duplicate any section. So we will be, aware of any changes into the modules. For example, the global or even the local, if it's a local manufactured product, if there is any changes, we will be aware, because we cannot submit the same sections. For example, module 3, we cannot submit it twice, so it will be not allowed as per ECTD rules. Also, the hyperlinking table of content, when we click for the ECTD, it takes us directly into the section itself. So I mean, the ECTD versus, so this is what, of course, there is many of advantage, but this is a few that I have shared. And also, that's why, the ICH guidelines, they moved from a CTD to the electronic section. Yeah, for many of these, like I have listed, if I compare to into NICE. Now, the API, to your last question, a very good question, Dr. Ala. The API in our supply chain. So if there is an API change, right? First of all, our role as a regulatory is that we have to secure the needed approval for this API before, we give the green light. We cannot give a green light of a product coming from new API to be supplied unless I have an agreement with the health authorities to be supplied exceptionally, because maybe there is no alternative for the patient, the product is urgently needed, if the health authorities would accept. And sometimes some exceptions are taken in place, but they put a condition that we have to submit the variation. So as I said, as a first step, in order, if there is any API change in my, from the currently approved API, in my product, we have to submit the needed variation. And, if I'm talking about an imported product, so this API has to be approved by the stringent health authorities, whether it depends on my reference country, if it's EU, if it's Canada, Australia, if it's US. So I have to get the approval of this, the reference country, prepare the dossier as per local regulation. It depends on the countries where I am filing these APIs, and then, file in my countries. To make the filing, very strategic and to ensure. So we need to sit with the supply chain to ask them, where is the supply forecast, where we are planning to, where is the product is important in which country, where we have an importance and a massive, for example, access for the patient. Then we will define country A, B, C. This is the forecast. When we have this, we will also define our submission timeline as per this supply planning. So for our supply chain, we cannot give them, as I said, they have to come back to us. It's our responsibility to secure the needed approval Once it's approved, we will be able, to give the green light, once it's approved, so we will record this approval, then the product can be supplied. Now, how we will choose an API, this my point of view, and this is my point of view, it has to be done by also the quality team and the CMC. We don't choose, suppliers by regulators. We have to get the approval. Yes, we can do assessment of these suppliers when we are, in the process of choosing these supplier. Maybe definitely regulatory are an integral part for the assessment, but we cannot choose these suppliers. It has to come with the quality and with the CMC team and the GMS, the global manufacturing team. I hope I respond to your questions, Dr. Ala.
Thank you, Doctor. Actually, the last question, maybe it's a little bit complicated because, as you have said, actually, for sure that we are not the people to select the API supplier or define the vendor to be supplied. But, sometimes as per our rule to cross-function with other teams, before we have ready-made documents or ready prepared documents for variation to get an approval from regulatory health authorities or whatever the competent authority, there is maybe sometimes I face this question too many times. Okay, if I need to add this API supplier, can I add it or not? So as a part of our science, let's say, I'm not saying that as a science of regulatory affairs, we should have the knowledge and experience to raise the let's say response to any question that may raised from other departments and guide them. As you have said, okay, we should prepare a roadmap to the R&D department or CMC department, whatever, who's responsible to make a comparison between both API suppliers in order to decide whether we can go or not. One of our questions or answers, we will ask him, does this supplier have CEB or USDMF? Because if it's either doesn't have USDMF or CEB as it has an European DMF, I'll tell him definitely this product will not, or this API supplier could not be supplied to UAE as an example, but I can supply it to Saudi FDA.
Correct.
So there is yes, doctor.
Yes, I mean, we are an integral part. I believe definitely, I definitely agree with you. So our assessment are crucial. We have to do the assessment as per RUCA regulation, because imagine they select an API without our assessment, and then this API is not possible, from the selection that, it's not allowed, they don't have DMF or something like that. I agree. We have to do the assessment, in the selection process. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any other question? Feel free to unmute yourself for any question, please. No more questions? Yes, Dr. Ala, تفضل.
Dr. Nawal, I just need to ask you from your experience as professional regulatory affairs and one of the leading pharmaceutical manufacturers in this world. What is the main role of Takeda in regulatory reliance? Okay, how can Takeda influence the regulatory reliance all over the health authorities?
Yeah, what do you mean by the regulatory reliance? Like, for the fast track, right?
Fast track, yes.
Okay. Thank you for the question again, Dr. Ala.
As example, today we have received an circular from GCC that they need to enhance the reliance by getting approval from 2 GCC countries. None of them is, let's say, none of them as country of origin, and Saudi FDA should be one. Just if you can give us more insights from Takeda perspective or from Takeda experience about this topic.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. So, we operate, definitely we put the patient on the center. So we have to ensure the product availability. But of course, when it comes into strategy, we work with, you know, the strategy, the medical marketing, you know, and business op to define what are the countries, you know, that we have. So based on the landscape, the healthcare, you know, guidelines, the landscape, the population, you know, and, you know, the revenue of the country. Then based on that, you know, we have, you know, tier countries, where the different, you know, countries and different filing. So for example, you know, talking about the reliance, you know, many of our product or most of our product are, you know, either approved by FDA and or, you know, EMA and other stringent health authorities. Then, you know, accordingly, you know, there is some classification. Some of them, they have a breakthrough or an orphan guidelines. So we are entitled for these reliance or these fast track. Then accordingly, you know, we bring the file, of course, as per local regulation in each country, for example, Saudi or UAE, or, you know, other countries, as per, you know, the defined strategy of the company, in which country we have to file first, right? Then, you know, we comply with the local regulation. If we do always a prior submission and assessment for each country on which regulatory path we have to file, you know, the product, whether it's a fast track, the normal fast track, for example, Saudi FDA priority review, based on the medical input, you know, for the product, if it's an unmet medical need, and many other considerations. Then when we do the strategy, then we will start implementing this strategy. So this is with regards to the reliance to your question. Also, you know, for the GCC, you know, the central, you mean the central registration, we are present. Yeah, we have product registered nationally. Depends, you know, based on many strategy. Again, as we said, like, you know, we have to ensure, you know, the patient has the medication, but also, you know, also we have a few products registered centrally. And I saw and I noticed, I was very happy to read the GCC news circular about having a 5 days approval, you know, if the product is approved by Saudi and or another GCC country. But it depends, as I said, again, on the strategy that we have, you know, agreed as a company, considering, you know, the market archetype for each country.
Shukran, Doctora. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nawal. If anyone has a question, you can unmute yourself.
Actually, I have a thanks for Dr. Nawal, not a question. Thank you for adding all the slides, and thank you for customizing the slides for our webinar today. They were really useful, and we learned a lot from your experience. Thank you so much. And thank you for the update on all the countries in the Middle East. It was very useful to hear, especially about the fast track and the timelines required to register many products, especially in many countries. So I think there's Dr. Ala is saying thank you as well. So we would like really to thank you for your time and for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's my pleasure. And really, it was, again, my pleasure, and to convey this passion and to share with you the regulatory affairs, you know, session. Again, thanks to all the IVPN team and to Dr. Mona for giving this opportunity. Thank you to all the audience for your time. And I would like to wish you a good evening to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Nawal. Thank you so much for answering the questions and for the enlightening presentation. And now we reach the end of our session, and have a nice evening ahead. And we hope we can see you in the next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.